Everyone. I'm Lindsay, the Frugal Crafter, and we are getting ready to do a live lunch hour paint along. And I asked you guys, or the community in general, on a community poll, when would be the best time to do live streams. And I got a bunch of answers, but overwhelmingly, the choice that was chosen was it doesn't matter, I'll catch the replay. So, what I decided to do is when I do a watercolor live stream, I'm going to do it at 12 o'clock noon. Eastern time on Wednesdays because that's when my weekly watercolor Wednesday video drops anyway. So just that way, I figured it will be easier for people to remember. Please let me know if you can hear me in the chat, if you can see my workspace. I can see it on my end. I just want to make sure that I'm not talking to a wall. So please just let me know if you can see me or hear me. I don't see the little dots moving on my microphone, so I'm hoping that oh, good, can see and hear me. Good, good, good. Okay, so this is what we're gonna paint today. The other idea I had was because I generally don't post tutorials for all my World Watercolor projects, I get a lot of requests saying, "Do you have a tutorial for that? Did you paint this one? Do you have a video?" I decided I would take some of those projects that people asked me if I had a video for and actually make videos for them because whenever I do a live stream, I like to do my project ahead of time so I don't have to think about the painting and I can be more focused on the teaching and answering questions and stuff. So I have plenty of material to do those streams with. So that's, I think, where we're going to start off. And I hope you guys enjoy it and get something out of it. And, hey, learn a little bit more about watercolor or have a friend in the background while you're doing your other arts and crafts. That's totally fine too. So let's look at the products we're going to use today. This original sketch I did was in an Artex watercolor sketchbook. This is a hot press paper, and it's available in three different sizes in hot press, or it's available in like a square 6x6 cold press, I believe. I've tried both of them. They're very nice sketchbooks, 100% cotton. I think they're probably made by the Potentate Paper Company out of China, which makes really nice paper in my opinion. But what we're going to paint on today is actually the watercolor calendar that we've been working on all year. So this is the 2025 version. I see they have the 2026 version up now. So if you were to order one, you'd probably end up with the 2026 version. And so you'd be a year ahead or half a year ahead. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, that's what the package looks like. I thought I would just show you that. And I am using some watercolors by Paul Rubens. I'm working on a review of this 48 set, and it's in the pretty rainbow tin. You can see that, it's kind of lovely. So I figured, what the heck, I was working on the review today, so I'm like, I'll just paint with these. You only need a number 8 round. If you don't have a number 8 round, you have a 6, a 7, a 10, something in that ballpark that has a nice point to it. I would say a Taklon brush just because it'll be easier to get those little details of the stems. But if you have a synthetic squirrel or a sable, whatever you like to use, honestly, a round, medium-sized brush. But I brought these brushes out because my contact at Craft Ammo really wants me to sell the rest of those brushes because we did a restock of them and they're giving a 20% off discount. They're not going to restock them after this. So if you did want these brushes, my signature set, they're 20% off until they sell out. I think that's the deal. There's a link in the video description. They're great brushes. Just wanted to give you the heads up. Mine are pretty well worn and well used after a couple of years here, but they've held up, so that's a good thing. So what we're going to do is start by sketching, and you can sketch with a pencil, whatever you like. I'm going to sketch with this, and I did test it to make sure it does erase when you heat it up. But I'm using one of these pens. It's called a friction by Pilot, and it's a pen that will disappear once you either erase over it or heat it up with a heat gun because it's the friction, the heat that makes it disappear. So I thought this would be perfect for when I'm demonstrating a drawing because then it will just disappear and I won't have really dark pencil lines, but I can draw dark enough for you guys to see. So what I'm going to do, so I don't get my hand in the way of the reference, is I'm going to bring my sketchbook over here and put my paper I'm drawing on over here. And I'm not going to tape it down because I'm not doing a background. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start with the pepper in the middle, and I'm hoping I can fit all these across. I should be able to. I'll just have to draw them smaller because that's a taller composition. So sometimes if I need to balance something out, I'll start in the center and I'll work out from that. And that helps me get everything balanced out. And I do the same thing when I am putting lettering on something. Oh yeah, look at that, nice and dark. So I'm just gonna start with this kind of bulb shape. It looks like a Christmas bulb. So a tip whenever you are like sketching something, you're like, oh, I don't know, that looks really complicated. Instead of saying, oh, I have to draw this complicated thing, ask yourself, what shapes do I see? What does it look like? Try to think of something that you feel like you can draw that's the same shape, and that will help you get over that kind of like confidence barrier that you might be having with your sketching. And I'm just gonna put this long stem up here. We got one pepper drawn. So this next one up here is going to curve. Oh, and by the way, I will take a couple breaks during the broadcast for questions. And if you're watching the replay and you don't want to hear the questions or the chit chat, then you can just skip those areas. So I try to keep my live streams very mindful of people's time. I know when you're here live, you love the chatter, but if you're watching the replay and you're not here chatting with everyone, you might not care about the questions. So I just want to be mindful of everyone's time. And I am going to put a little stem here. And I think the key with something like this, because we are doing 7 objects that are all peppers, is to try to find the variety in the shapes. Gonna do that one there. These are very simple shapes to draw. So, oh, if you do have a question, just write the word question in all capital letters and then type your question in upper and lowercase letters so YouTube doesn't like boot it out. And that way it will catch my eye when I go to look at the chat because I can't look at the chat the entire time. You can add a little flare on your stems if you want. Now I am going, if you were using a waterproof pen, I wouldn't crisscross that. I would stop it and start it again so you didn't have a line overcrossing each other. But because this is going to theoretically erase when I heat it up, it should. My sample did. Um, I'm not going to bother with that. Now this one, I think I might make this next pepper curve under a little bit to fill the space a little nicer. And maybe make it even a little bit bigger. It's this beautiful chili pepper here. I'm going to curve it in. So think about the space you're trying to fill as well. And think about the plausibility of the object that you're drawing being that shape. Now, with fruit and vegetables, it's really great because there's so much variety in the shapes of these different plants. All right, we've got more than half of it done. So then I'm going to come over here, work on directly on this side. So I'm still balancing everything out. Now, if you get something really off, like you like, whoa, I have way too much space here or there, you can always throw in like some seeds or some vines or some splatter. So there's lots of different ways you can fill an area where you don't feel like you've got enough going on. And this one right here almost looks like a ghost. Maybe it's a ghost pepper. Maybe that's where it got its name. I have no idea. But it's got this kind of ooh, spooky tail going there. And like the stems attached with almost these umbrella. They almost look like little umbrellas. So that's something you can think about that they look like. I'm taking advantage of having the extra headspace in this composition that I usually don't have because I usually tape off my paper. So that's kind of fun too. This guy I'm going to drop down a little bit lower. So, and I'm going to start with a stem because I want to use my space a little bit better for to like kind of work around that logo up there. This calendar project has been a lot of fun. Um, I kind of decided to do it on a lark, and it's been a blast because it's like, I don't know, something about having something very ephemeral like a calendar or a greeting card, something that doesn't have to live forever, gives you the freedom of just having fun with it. Now our largest pepper is here on the end, and I think I'm gonna start with the back of the pepper so I can kind of have it match the border a little bit. Uh, I'm bringing it'll come a little bit closer at the closest point because it's gonna have some larger area and larger space up there. I'm gonna bring the tail in almost so it mimics the shape that is left behind from that one. Trying to keep my hand out of the way as I sketch, but uh, it's difficult. And I'll change a stem if I feel like it could have a better shape or a shape that's going to go better with the composition. I'll move it, I'll have it bend one way or the other. And that's really all we need for our sketch. I'll give you a few, like a minute or so to finish up your sketch, and I'll see if there's any questions to answer. So this is a retractable one, and the way to retract it, I was kept pushing on the end, but it's just right here. And I got this in a 3 pack for like $5 on Amazon. Didn't link it up. I'll have to link it up, but because I thought that might be interesting if depending on what I'm sketching on, like if I'm sketching on pastel paper, I might want a red or a blue, like if I'm doing a color on a toned background. I don't know. I thought that might be kind of interesting. I don't know if they make white ones that erase, probably not, but I don't know. I was just thought that was a really cool, fun idea, and it would be fun to experiment with a bit. All right, I'm going to look for questions. And again, if you're watching the replay and you want to skip ahead, go ahead. Oh, Delia sent a $2 super thanks, super chat. Thank you so much. It's very kind of you. The calendar pages are really nice. They're 100% cotton, and I think they're just lovely. All right. I don't see any questions at this moment. And of course, I think you can pause a video when it's live and resume. So if you did want to pause and then play, you just be however, behind. But it's not being behind. I mean, we're all just here hanging out, having a good time. So, if you want to do that, that's totally fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to try putting this. So I have this above. I might have to zoom out a little bit. Yeah, let me zoom out just a little bit so we can have both on the screen. Because I think that might be a little more useful to have all of this on camera. We could zoom in, but I think that might be a little bit better to have it kind of all on camera. Oh, good. I sketched. I was kind of worried for a second that I sketched on the wrong month because that would have been bad. I guess it wouldn't really matter if that was October, but I'm going to start on this side basically because I don't want to drag my hand through the paint, and I'm going to start by wetting the pepper. And since this is all pretty much the same color, I'm going to go ahead and wet the stem as well. Now, when you sketch with a pencil, like a graphite pencil, and then you paint over it with watercolor, if you try to go in and erase those lines after the watercolor's gone on top, the gum arabic in the watercolor seals your pencil lines down, and you can't erase them all completely. So that's kind of the benefit of the having the pen that's going to erase with the heat. You could also use a watercolor pencil, but then you could lose your lines before you're ready to lose them. So I thought this might be a really good kind of best of both worlds situation. All right, so I am going to use a couple different greens here. I'm going to start off with just a little sap green. I'm just going to draw it down the center. That's going to be kind of our highlight area. Then I'm going to use, you could mix a little bit of phthalo green, and then I've got some Hooker's green deep. I'm going to use that, I think, because I have it right here on my palette. Is that it? Actually, no, it's this one. I'm not going to be too fussy about it, to be honest. This is no wrong way, but look at how my paint is. Notice how it's not really wet. The paper's wet. My paint is not really wet. And that's going to let me be able to control how much it spreads. If I was doing like a really juicy wet to wet background, I would probably want juicier paint. But here, I want to be able to control where my paint goes a little bit more. So keeping it more at that paste consistency. See that? See how thick it is? I'm letting it dilute on the paper, and I'm letting it kind of mix on the paper, but not over mix, not go wild all over the place. I want it to stay put. Now, of course, the using the paints from the pan help that. Using a paint that's not a really flowy paint helps. If I was using core watercolor, I would get much more movement even using this technique. But if that's the paint you have, that still will work. It'll still work for this technique, you just might have a little bit more movement. Oops, I went outside the lines, but I'm not worried about it because those lines are gonna disappear for me. And I'm just gonna fill the stem in with that darker Hooker's green dark. Plus, I kind of do this thing where if there's a color I don't use a lot, rather than poo-poo it, if I have it, if I have it in my palette, right, it's bought and paid for, I've got it. What I will do is I will like challenge myself to use it in a painting. So there's another technique I want to share with you because I think I want to bring out a little bit more of a highlight there. And maybe you didn't have sap green. You're like, Lindsay, I only have one green. I don't have two grains. Well, we're gonna lighten by lifting. So what I'm gonna do is wash my brush off. I'm gonna blot it off. So it's just kind of damp. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw right through that center and lift up a little bit. Okay, it's just gonna give me a little bit of highlight. You can keep doing that until it's as light as you like. Now, if you go too far or you get water on there, you could cause some blossoms inadvertently, but you can always wet it and repaint it. So don't worry about that. All right, we're gonna go on to the next color, the next pepper, which is going to be a little bit more of a yellowy green. So I am just going to again wet the pepper. I'm not gonna wet the stem though. The stem's a different color. And please feel free to mix with whatever you have. I've got a big palette here. You certainly don't need this many colors. I'm not going to use that many colors, but if you don't have the same colors I'm using, just pick whatever you have as closest. That's fine. All right. I want to grab a little bit of like a lemon yellow. Let me add that. Oh, that's a pretty color. Yeah, we're going to add that to the hooker's green or whatever green you used. Add water if you need to lighten something or add more yellow, get the tone that you want. I think I want to take a little bit more yellow in that highlight area. So I'm picking it up right from the pan. You can see how pasty it is on the tip of my brush. And I'm just going to go in and add some of that undiluted yellow right there on the edge to brighten that edge up. Then I'm going to go into that hooker's green dark. I still have yellow on my brush. And I am going to just get that in on that shadow side. So as our peppers kind of go across the spectrum of color, we're getting a little more towards yellow here. If you feel like, oh, I want that to be a little bit brighter, I want a little more color there, you can go, it's still damp. You can go in and add some more color. I think I want to mix up a little bit more though. Don't put too much water on it or you'll get blossoms. That's a little too dark. So I'm gonna clean my brush off, dry it, grab some yellow. The paints I used for my demo piece were the Supervision tube set of 48. So I don't have exactly the same paints here, but that's fine. I'm gonna let that dry before I go and do the stem. Gonna go to the next pepper. Now this next pepper has a beautiful granulation for some cobalt teal paint. I don't have that in this palette, so I will probably add a little ultramarine in to make it granulate a bit. But if you have cobalt teal, it's a really pretty effect, and I would use that. And I have it, but I just don't have it in this palette. And I'm trying to keep to this palette just for the sake of um, it being in the supply list and working on a review on these paints. Right. So I'm going to start with that yellow green mix we were using because we're working our way across the spectrum. Oh, you know what? I think I'm gonna add some of their, I'm gonna mix a couple colors here. I'm gonna add some of that. It's like a called light turquoise from this set if you happen to have it, but it's basically like it's got white in it. It's a green plus white, but oh, that's a pretty color though. I'm gonna have to add a little bit of ultramarine blue to that if I want to get that granulation, which I thought was really pretty. So never feel like you have to go and splash out on all of the. I'm adding some turquoise in there because it's just too drab. Don't feel like you have to go out and splash out on all the latest and greatest things that other people have to get the same effect. I have a whole video on how to make your own granulating palette with colors that probably are in your stash already. Now, this color is it the same? No, it's not exactly the same, but it'll be fine. It'll be close enough. One of the things that I think slow down learning is jumping between too many supplies. And I can tell you that based on personal experience. Now, I'm going to add some extra water into this because I want that ultramarine to granulate. And if you have granulating colors, it needs to be kind of puddly. And the reason for that is because colors that granulate are sedimentary colors, which means their pigment particles are larger. And if they have standing water, then the heavy pigment particles will separate. They'll kind of oh, if you've ever had a bucket of seawater and then you just let it sit, all the sand and stuff will kind of settle out. That's what happens here with our sedimentary colors. The sediment just kind of settles out and then you end up with that pretty effect. Now if you don't like that effect, you want to make sure it's not a really juicy wash and it won't have that sedimentary effect. So ways to get what you want out of your paints. But the fewer paints you have to pick from, the easier it's going to be to learn all of them, and then you won't have so much of a learning curve, because it's easier to memorize what 12 colors will do versus what 48 colors will do or 148 colors will do. So again, we're wetting this next pepper. Again, I didn't paint the stem. I'm going to let them dry first because otherwise they'll bleed together. And they're different in colors versus that one that has about the same color in the stem. I'm gonna again start with that lemon yellow. And this time I'm gonna grab, let's see, I think I'll try some new gamboge. Let's see if that is dark enough. We might need to add something to it. We might need to add a little burnt sienna to it, but we're gonna start with this and see. Oh, I think that's dark enough. If yours isn't, grab a little burnt sienna. It's fun to try new products though, so I totally get wanting to try something new. I love it too. I love art supplies, so I totally understand. All right, now, you know what? I think I might put a little highlight in that one while it's still wet. Just drying my brush off. I'm just gonna give it a little bit of just a little streak there. You don't have to. I just thought it might be nice. I didn't. That one is. I could scrub back on that one, but maybe I will. Right now, it's kind of at that don't touch it stage. It's almost dry. And then I'm gonna do a little bit here to just dry my brush off, lift out a little bit of the pigment. All right, the next one, we are going to wet it. We'll start off with a stripe of the lemon yellow down the center. Then we're going to go in with a new gamboge. Let them mix together in the pepper. Sometimes I like to vary my technique as well, just to, especially when you have such similar objects just to give it a little bit of interest and difference. I have no idea what I'm gonna do with this calendar at the end of the year. I suppose I could print out next year's calendar information and tape it or glue it on there. I don't know. Have not decided. Now, I think I want to get a little bit of orange in the mix. So I'm going to take some new gamboge here. And I'm going to look at my next two peppers. It's like, okay, what am I going to use for those peppers? So that way I don't have to get two reds into the mix. I can just get one red into the mix. So I think I will take some Cad Red Deep. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit and mix it into that gold, the new gamboge gold color. And I'm just going to add it towards the edges. That's a pretty, it almost makes a quinacridone gold tone. It's so pretty. So we're shifting. We're going from a cool bluish green to slightly more neutral to yellowy green. Then we're going to our yellow peppers, and we're going into our orangey. Then we'll get over to red. So it's not a perfect rainbow, but it's natural and pleasing and orderly. I think that's what makes it so appealing. Trying not to get too much water here in the stage, just get a little bit of red. Okay, so next up, we will wet our next pepper. For some reason, I decided that I was going to make my left water bucket dirty water and my right bucket clean water. So I'm all perplexed because that's not how I do it normally. But I dipped my brush in the wrong water, so it's like, all right, we're going with this. It's That's all right. It's going to make my brain work a little harder and improve my neural pathways. This stuff like this painting, that's great for your brain. I'm going to start off with the new gambos and paint kind of a little bit of a highlight or lighter spot in here. Then I'll go into some of the reddish color I mixed. But don't worry if the peppers aren't as dark as you want them to begin with. You can always glaze over, but I would try to shoot for getting them about as dark as you want them. Generally, I move my paper around a lot when I'm working. I'm trying to keep it still so that it's easy to see on camera. So if I look really awkward as I'm applying paint, that would be why. One of the reasons anyway. Maybe I'll take a little bit of highlight out of that one too. So clean your brush, wipe off the excess water, and just kind of pull a little lighter area just for a little bit of body. It'll fill in a little bit with color. Don't worry about it. It'll just what we're going for is a bit of depth. Oh, I see Linda asking for the reference photo. I think this was on the Unsplash, but I didn't. I just did a screenshot of it when I was painting this back last summer. So I don't know 100% sure. I do know it was probably Unsplash or Pexels because it was a commercial use photo. All right, I'm gonna wet this pepper a little bit. But I'm just working from my painting because I always tweak the composition a little bit and um I had it right here. I don't know where the reference photo was. I just know it's either Unsplash or Pexels. Okay, so I'm gonna go in with that red Now, I was thinking about adding a little alizarin crimson, and actually I might because I can add the crimson if I need to give a really dark black. I can mix that with uh, my green to make a really dark black. So I think I will. Um, Permanent. This is a beautiful permanent alizarin crimson in this color. I'm gonna get it like pasty. So on my brush, really thick, and I'm gonna go around the edges to give it a little bit of roundness. It'll be because it'll be darker on the edges, which gives it a little bit of shadow. Please hit the thumbs up button while you're here. That helps YouTube know that you find value in these streams, and hopefully it'll recommend it to other artsy friends. Okay, I'll do just a little bit of lift in the center. I'm just going to drag a dry brush just to slightly lighten it. Nothing too dramatic because we have white gel pens that we can employ to get really bright highlights if we need to later. All right, so now what I'm going to do is come back to this guy and I am going to mix a color there. I'm going to start with my sap green, add a little bit of the hooker's green dark, and I'm going to add a little bit of some of the red from my palette to make it a little bit brown. You could switch to a smaller brush if you want to. Sometimes if you have a brush that's big, even if it comes to a point, it can give you like it can carry too much paint, or it won't stay to a point unless you have it really loaded up, and then it drops paint on you. You want just a little dash of red in the red and green make a beautiful brown or black, depending on the shade of the red and the shade of the green. I'm going to take some sap green. I'm going to mix it in with a little bit of that murky turquoise. Oops. Dropped water on there. Fill this in. I might have to go to a smaller brush just because to have the nice point, I need to have it really loaded with paint, and I don't want it to drop any paint. Maybe I'll grab my little liner brush. Liner brushes are a little more difficult to control because they have such long bristles, but we'll see. We'll see how that does. I'm gonna add a little bit of this brown in there. I like to mix my own browns, but if you don't want to, go ahead and grab some burnt sienna. I like to mix them if I haven't introduced them yet, I should say. I'm gonna go with the sap green again with a little bit of that turquoisey color. Basically, I want to get something in all of these stems so that I can heat dry it, and then that will erase all my lines, and then we can go from there. Really puddly. So I'm not really going for a ton of detail at this point. Take some of the hooker's green dark and sap green together. That's a pretty green. And we'll do probably the remaining three stems with that color. Just be careful as you get over to these peppers because they may not be dry yet. So you might want to even leave a little bit of gap. But don't worry because we can have more detail later. Trying to ignore my lines there because I decided I want to move my stem over just a little bit. I did get into the pepper a little bit though. Let me see if I can lift that right off. Not good enough. I think I want a little blue in that. I'm gonna take some ultramarine. A little bit wetter though, so the paint can come off my brush. Okay, if you have any questions, I'm going to take a question break in just a moment. Type the word question in all caps and your question in upper and lower, and I will answer it while I dry my peppers here. I'm curious to see. Hopefully, oh, yes, it's disappearing already. Oh my gosh. That's crazy. Look at that. Wow. Like the pen lines are disappearing before my paper's dry, even. That's wild. It almost looks like a stencil. Like it looks like I stenciled them because of how simple the shapes are without having those lines there. Wow. Oh, that's kind of cool. That's going to be fun to add detail to now because it's like a blank slate. Look at that. That's crazy. I'm going to heat it from the back to flatten it out. A replay will be available after the stream. So if you missed anything or came in late, don't worry. It'll be up on my channel in perpetuity. All right, give everyone a chance to catch up while I look for questions. That heat tool is so quiet. It's the Ranger Heat It tool. They're not white anymore. They're black now, but they still make it. Boy, you guys are cool. While you're chatting amongst yourselves, I'm just noticing I'm not seeing any questions yet. So, all right, we're gonna keep on trucking. All right, I might just grab a smaller round just because I don't want to inadvertently drop a bunch of water on my piece because I have to keep it full. It's pretty charged for a large brush like that. So we're going to start going around and adding some detail. I mean, it doesn't matter if you want to add the shadow first. You could add the shadow first. You know what? Let's do that. Let's add the shadow first. That way, if we blur anything, it'll get tidied up. I am going to use one of the colors in here. There's a few colors that granulate in this set, and I didn't really get the granulation I wanted from this compared to that, where I used a cobalt turquoise from the Supervision set. But there's a Payne's Gray that uses PB29 and PBK11, two granulating colors. So I'm going to use that. So what I'm going to do is these are tight shadows, so we don't need to paint them. Um, we don't need to paint them with water and then fill them in. We can just go right in. So I'm going to make a nice juicy puddle of the Payne's Gray on my palette. This is a new palette. It's beating up a bit, but I haven't washed it or anything. See, it's the thing what I told you about, like getting used to new supplies, and I'm getting used to this set while I'm painting. I mean, watercolors all generally behave the same, but I want to make sure I have enough to do all the shadows here on my palette so I have the same consistency and the same darkness. I probably will stick with this brush though until I need to get in the details. And what I'm going to do, our light's coming in. It's above, but it's above and slightly that way. And well, it's very much overhead. Well, we could see sometimes we'll see a little bit. Oh, okay. See, that's what I meant about it dropping too much paint. If your paintbrush is too big, you know what? I'm gonna go with the smaller brush. I'm so indecisive. I'm gonna blame it on being rusty, live stream rustiness. Hopefully this is dark enough. All right, so here, this is raised, the stem is raised, so it's going to kind of be under and loop back. We'll see a little bit of the shadow peeking out right there where there's the bend in the veggie. And then we're going to see it kind of catch up over here. I just want to have I have this really the and don't worry how dark this looks. It's gonna be drier. It's just really wet, so it looks really dark. And as the tip of the pepper lifts off the paper, because if we had a real life pepper, it would like the tip would be kind of like curling up. Since it's off the paper, it's kind of like that. It's going to separate from uh our fruit a little bit there. I'm going to be going over the the Friday a little bit, but it should be transparent enough once it dries that it won't be a big deal. And it's puddly, but you need it puddly if you have a granulating color that you want to granulate. Same thing over here. We've got that raised stem. So I'm kind of going next to it and then joining it up when it gets to the body. And then kind of catching up over here. And we got this the tight shadow that's going along the edge. This paper has more sizing in it than than the sketchbook maybe because it almost wants to resist the paint a little bit. All right. On this one, we've got our shadow kind of starts over here at the bend very, very tightly and then gets a little bit wider as the um as it kind of comes down this angle because our light is up, but it's just slightly angled in like that for these. I don't know if that's what I said to begin with. If not, I apologize. I like to get my shadows in because it helps establish values. And then we'll have just a little kiss of a shadow here where it's bending. And this actually, the way I have this at more of an angle, I'm thinking the shadow would have to be much tighter in, and maybe even be visible on both sides of the stem. It's kind of a um, challenging way to do a shadow lighting when you don't have a really distinct, or it's not coming from a really distinct direction. And of course, the more round an object, the thicker the shadow is going to be because it's going to be blocking more light rather than something be more flat. It's going to be blocking less light, and you'll have less of a shadow. Well, that does look dark, doesn't it? Well, you know what? It's better to have these dark if you're gonna have dark shadows, better to know it before you start putting details in so you'll know how dark you need to go with your details. Um, so I've got to determine which is gonna be the higher, which pe pepper is gonna be on top. I think this pepper is gonna be on top. So when I do the shadow for the lower one, I'm going to need to make sure that I stop the shadow I get when it meets up with the lower pepper. This also has more texture to it. That's something that didn't occur to me. This paper has more texture to it. Not a ton more, but a little bit more, and that will give us a little bit different of a look, as well as using different paints. I should have just used the palette I painted this with, I suppose, but you know me, always trying to kill two birds with one stone or be more efficient. Let's see. I don't think we would see the shadow on that side up there because the way it's bent. I think it wouldn't we wouldn't really see it till it came down here on this sketch because I have the angle a little bit different. And you can always do a softer shadow too. You could go back and, put a lighter shadow on the other side where you do have an overhead lighting, and you could have a little bit of scant shadow on the opposite side. And when I set up still life in my studio, I have so many lights on in here that I always have some really complex shadow situations happening. Actually, if I have this much of a shadow on this side, I would have more of a shadow on the other side of the previous pepper, so I'm gonna put that in. I'm surprised at how dark this shadow is, considering how much water I added to the paint. Yeah, I'm gonna do just a scant one anyway. And then I guess I'll come over here and do a little scant one there too. I feel like this needs to come down a little bit wider since it is kind of a plump pepper. All right, and up here, our last one. One of the things about doing the World Watercolor Month, I'm usually sitting on my couch and painting, and I don't really pay attention to how long something takes me. So I may not remember correctly as I'm like going back. It's like, how long did that take me? Oh, it must have taken about an hour. And then I realized, oh no, it took me like an hour and a half or 2 hours or maybe 3 hours. You're just kind of in the groove. I just totally went over the edge of that pepper, but that'll be fine. Oh, actually, I think this one might have it. Shadow might drop a little bit where the tip of the pepper is. All right, let's give that a quick dry. If you have any questions, go ahead and let me know. That shadow's way darker. My bad, but it'll be fine. I'm going to look at questions here. Paulo asks, "What's the brand of the sketchbook clamps that you use that have the silicone in the tip?" Oh, I don't remember. It's kind of a generic one of those no-name brands on Amazon, but I know I linked to it when I did my sketchbook flip through of World Watercolor Month. So if you check out that video, I have a direct link to it. Um, it was sold as a chip clip, if that helps. It was like sold to be a bag clip for your kitchen. And they were in a pack of 10. No, no, I'm sorry. It was a pack of 6 for like 10 or $11. I think I paid $10, but I think the price went up. All right, yeah, that's way darker. Oh well. Well, that's all right. We'll be fine. Everything's fine. Let's see if there's any more questions. Um, the name of that pencil again, Linda Perry asks. I think you mean this, the friction pen. You can get these at any office supply store, but this 3 pack was on Amazon for like $5, 4.99 or something. I'll add a link when I after the live stream, but you can find it by Googling it, or any office supply store or art store should have them. I think they're about $2 each. I because they had them at Blick when we went to Blick last month, and but they were like two something, so much cheaper on Amazon. Or probably if you ordered them online at Blick. I think the store it's a little more pricey in store. If I missed your question, please feel free to add it again because I think I've scrolled back to all the previous questions. Okay. House again. Yeah, that sounds right, Angela. Thank you. I think that's right. Okay, so I've got my values a little different here. I've got my shadow darker, which means I can go a little bit more intense on the details that I add. So let's start here and work over. Let's see. Now I have a lot of different options for doing shadows. I think I generally don't add black, but since or Payne's gray, but since I've already used it, I am not opposed to it. I'm going to add a little bit of ultramarine blue, Hooker's green dark, and that Payne's gray together for a shadow for that first pepper. I don't want to have it super juicy. I want the consistency of say milk. And I am going to go in and start adding some details here. Kind of think of this uh as almost like you're inking. Like if you were going to fine line, and I'm using the smaller brush just because I have to have more paint in that brush to have it come to a point, a really sharp point, and it will drop too much paint while we're working. So I'm kind of thinking, how would I outline this? I want to sharpen up my edges because I lost, excuse me, I lost my edges when I was doing because when I erased the pen, I lost my edges. This is quite a blue color that I have going on here. I'm going to go back to that number 8 though in a second. I just want to get a nice crisp. A nice crisp edge. I grab the Payne's Gray and um, green and just get a little bit more texture into the stem. Kind of dry brushing a little bit here. I'm going to grab a little bit of that red off my palette too. Watch out for little beads of water on the ferrule of your brush because they can slide down and make a mess of things. Basically, I'm knocking back the green in the cap of the stem here. So it's a little bit different in texture and color of the rest of the pepper. I'm just kind of dry brushing to give it a little bit more of a rough appearance versus the sleek and smooth appearance of the pepper itself. It just gives it a little bit more roughness. All right, I'm going to go back to the number 8 round and take that Hooker's green dark. Oh, I just kind of like that on its own, actually. And I'm going to do a pretty strong slice of it there on the left side. I'm also going to put it where I see dents, or not like dense, but like flatter areas. And when we do this, when we add a layer of transparent paint over a previous layer of transparent paint, that's just called glazing. So glazing is really great because it helps you build up luminosity in a painting. Now, some paints glaze better than others. To get a paint that's going to glaze really well, you want a transparent paint. So, like that turquoise color that we used, if we put that in a glaze, that's not going to give us the same effect. Now, if we have too hard of an edge on our glaze, we can go in with a damp brush and we can soften it a bit. So, like maybe you wanted to lift on that first step, but you didn't quite get there. You didn't quite lift it in time. It dried. You kind of have a chance to get back to it at this stage. Just debating whether I want, I did use a little bit of that. I feel like I want a little bit of blue in there. Yeah. And when you glaze, you want to make sure the color underneath is completely dry, or you're going to reactivate it, or maybe even push the pigment around. But if you want to push the pigment around, you can go in there and kind of gently work it with your brush and get it to move. So there's no bad technique. Sometimes you do something you're like, oh, I didn't mean to do that, but hey, it's going to work for this. Take a little bit of lemon yellow. I do want to brighten up the center a little bit. So there, I like the complexity of this now. I think it looks much more three-dimensional, and I'm gonna leave it alone and go on to the next, the next guy there. I'm gonna take sap green, adding a little bit of that turquoise in it because I thought that was just so pretty. So I'm not always gonna do everything the same way. Have you ever done a project and you're like, well, if I ever had to do that again, I know what I would do differently. So that's kind of what I take the chance to do when I'm painting. I might be like, yeah, that worked out all right, but I think if I was gonna do it again, I would do this or that. Some lemon yellow. I feel like I lost the luminosity on this, so I'm just bringing up the color a bit. And I think we'll go to that smaller brush and get some of that, take some of the sap green, yellow, lemon yellow, and turquoise and outline it a bit because I've got some rough edges. I didn't realize how rough they were until I um, erased the lines. And I don't mind it being a little bit darker on the edge because that gives it a sense of roundness. And any place I see like a dip, I want to go in and put a little bit of that shadow just to show that it's indented a little bit. There's like a wrinkle. You know how peppers get kind of like they get that texture to them. It's not necessarily that they're shriveled up, but they kind of do like shrivel and wrinkle a little bit. So I kind of want to get that in there as well. All right, now moving on to that guy's stem. Now, because this isn't sopping wet, I can go into the stem and it shouldn't bother anything too badly. And yeah, that one's way more like of a lime green than this one, but you know, however you want to. I guess you get different range of paints here. I'm gonna mix kind of a brown. I'm gonna start with the new gamboge. I'm gonna add a little bit of that red, a little green, that little bead of water off of there. Okay. Maybe a little bit more red. Starting to lose where I mix things here. What the heck was I mixing right here? Okay. It's nice to use reds next to greens because they make the colors pop a bit. Just reinforcing that kind of umbrella shape of the stem, adding texture by not having my brush super wet. I need some more strong green in there. I'm just going to take that leftover mix from my palette. Try to reuse the colors from my palette as much as I can because it makes harmony. Oh, right. So I get a different texture to the cap. I like that. We go to the next pepper, make a little bit more brown. Actually, I'm wondering how the sap green and that red, that cad red deep would go together. I bet that would make a nice brown. Ah, yeah, it does. Look at that brown. It's like chocolate. It's like milk chocolate. And just gonna do some like little dried veins. It's a little, that's a little rough. Okay, I'm gonna go in with my bigger brush and just kind of soften that a bit. Yeah, we'll let that be. We'll let that. Oh, you know what? Maybe a little bit of yellow in there. Oh, you know what? Why don't we get out a credit card scraper? That'll give us some nice veins. I won't have to keep fussing with it and overwork it. You can scrape it back later. Okay, I like that. I like that better. All right, so I was really disappointed in the lack of texture that I got with that guy. Um, so that was a bit of a bummer, but I'm not going to be dissuaded. I'm going to start in with this. Just it's turquoise. It's oh gosh, I just spattered on this, and I spattered it with a very staining color. So I guess we have some spatters to look forward to in our future. I'm going to glaze a shadow with this turquoise because it is so translucent. A radioactive pepper here. Did anybody hear? There was a really funny song that somebody wrote. I don't know who did it, but it was to the tune of Video Killed the Radio Star, but the song was Radioactive Shrimp Bought at Walmart because there was like that recall, that shrimp recall. And that's gonna live rent free in my head for the rest of my life. It's so funny. Somebody did a little video on it. Nobody knows who wrote it, but somebody did a video of it on I don't know, it's Instagram or Threads or something, and it would they had these like little video game shrimp, like just kind of dancing around. Oh my gosh, it was just so simple and stupid, but so funny. I mean, it's not funny if people ate radioactive shrimp. I don't mean to like be cavalier about that. That's not funny, but the song was funny. All right. Oh yeah, we got a little bit of a denty situation here, so I'm gonna add some darker color in there. It was basically palette mud. It was some hooker's green, some of that turquoise. Maybe I will do a little bit of that opaque turquoise light, dab that in a couple places. Maybe add it with a little bit of lemon yellow because I don't know. I don't like this palette as much as the original Paul Rubens paint. And the original Paul Rubens paint is only like the set of 48 is $72. And this one they want $68 for this palette. And I think that it's I don't think that's the way to go. I think that's too much for this palette. I think the 24 set has a better collection of colors, but yeah, I'll use it a little bit more. Okay. I'm hoping that those little blossoms in there, that wet into wet with like the viscosity of the turquoise that's got the white mixed into it is going to push around and give me a little bit of that texture I felt like I was lacking previously, but who knows? Who knows? I don't know. But I do think the paints with the peppers with the layers are looking better than the ones without, so it feels like good progress. We're going to move on to this guy. Now, yellows don't have the range of value because yellow at its darkest iteration is not going to be, really dark. So on one hand, it kind of makes yellow objects a little bit easier because there's less you're going to do to them, but it can also be difficult to get the definition. But this is a really round one, so we wouldn't have too much going on there. And then we'll just do a little detail on the cat. Oh my gosh, you guys. I have got to show you something in a minute. When I'm done doing all these details, I got to show you. Remind me if I forget. But our city, our local city, Bangor, Maine, has this art exchange, just like community art project where people they have these like old newspaper boxes. I mentioned in Sat Chat, so you might have heard me talk about it. And you can it's kind of like a little library. You leave a painting and you can take a painting or a piece of art. It doesn't have to be a painting. It's just going to be some type of art and there's 3 in Bangor, and so I've made 3 little paintings, and I'll have a tutorial on them, coming up probably in the next week or so, and I got them done. Oh my gosh, they came out so cute that I almost don't wanna get rid of them. I mean, it's not like I'd wanna give away painting it that wasn't good, but it's so cute. It's kinda like, "Oh, I like it so much, I don't wanna get rid of it," but I'm gonna get rid of it because that's what I painted it for. I want people to be jazzed about, the art that I put in there. Um, but I think it's such a cool idea, and I gotta either go tomorrow or Friday and drop it off because I need to get my video done. But I just thought it was such a fun idea. I feel like I've lost the plot with this stem here. Yeah, we're gonna do the credit card. I think the credit card is what I'm doing here. Yeah, probably need a little bit more work, but that's it gives it a little bit of definition anyway. All right, let's go on to the next one. We're gonna have it a little bit darker. So we'll do the gamboge, a little bit of the red. Now this is one of those kind of chilies that could have kind of denty, wrinkly areas. So I'm gonna kind of lean into that. Oh, right here would be a really big dent. God, I feel like such a sloppy painter today. I'm wearing my glasses and everything. I'm taking the Hooker's Green Dark and a little bit of that reddish orange mix that we just made. Mm, a little bit more of the Hooker's Green, maybe a little bit Payne's Gray actually. Want to make that stem look like it is different than the one over it. But I feel like I'm a little too close to that wet paint, that golden wet paint there. Give some texture anyway. I have a feeling that the colored pencils are going to come out on this one. I think the paint is not as good as I don't think this paint is as good as Supervision, honestly. Right, this guy really needs to have some brighter color. I'm going to take the gamboge, which is more transparent, and the lemon, which is a little bit more opaque, and I'm going to hit it with a little bit of that in the center. In fact, I think I'm going to use a scrubber brush and actually lift out some pigment because I want it lighter in there in general. Scrubber, these are what I like. They're by Royal and Langnickel. They are available under 3 different ranges. This is a Nocturna Pro. They're also in the Menta and the Zen series, but you want the soft scrubber because it's Taklon and it will be gentle on your watercolor paper. The stiff scrubbers are like a harder nylon and they will eat your paper. So you don't want that. All right, so I'm doing the yellow, those 2 yellows in that middle area where I have the highlight. And then I'm going to go in with that the cad red towards the outside because I just didn't have that color punch that I wanted. So I'm basically going to be glazing over the whole thing. And now I'm going to mix some gamboge into that red and do the other side. And just kind of blend it up into that highlight area. I'm going to clean my brush off and blot it and then soften that situation there in the center. There we go. That's a little better. All right, and the cap on that guy. Hey, some green. I'm just picking up mud. Basically, I've got some orange and some green in here. This paper feels almost resistant. I don't know why. I've used the other pages from the calendar, but you know what? I did put some Blistex on before I started. I'm wondering if I touched my paper. I often assume user error because it's usually the case. All right. Actually, I kind of like the way that one is just as it is. I think I'll just maybe soften this little area right here. Yeah, kind of like that one. All right, and then this last pepper, hopefully the red, I think I'm gonna need a little bit of something in that red. Let's take a little bit of Payne's gray, but some pretty thick red here. I don't think I used crimson on that. Maybe I did and I'm forgetting. I might have, but I'm just using the cadmium red and a little bit of Payne's gray. Somebody wants to roll back the footage, they can let me know what I used. This will be fine though. I want to smooth out that rough edge though. I'm not loving that. I think I'll just charge in with some red on its own in the center there, just because I think it might look weird if I just leave that. There. All right, and let's do detail or stem a little bit there, and then I will show you what I'm going to take to the art exchange. If anybody's interested, well, I'm going to show you anyway. You can skip ahead, I guess, if you're watching a replay. If you're watching it live, well, you're going to have to see what I'm going to bring into the art exchange, whether you want to or not. Add a little bit of that turquoise to there, to that green. I got a little smudgy up there with that stem, so I'm gonna try to smooth that out a bit. Yeah, I did not account that the hot pressed paper would or the cold pressed paper would affect my technique so much with this piece, but because this is not a terribly rough paper that this watercolor calendar is made out of, I would say it's cold pressed, but it's not like even it's not as rough as Arches, for instance, but did definitely it did definitely behave more like I got a lot more drag on my brush from it. Now I'm just gonna quickly look through and see if there's anything I want to define more before I dry this layer. This guy got a little bit rough. So basically I'm just kind of fine lining a bit. It's amazing how much just a pencil line, like I have pencil lines on that you really wouldn't notice, but um, they're kind of noticeable as far as not really noticeable, but they make a difference. I gotta clean that pan. I've made a mess of that. So basically going like a shade darker than what I painted and just kind of giving it a really light outline. I fear I might end up with some bronzing on some of these colors though. This paint, and that's when there's like so much binder. You've used such a thick passage that um the binder in paint like is you've too much binder and then it makes it glossy. Sorry, little I'm gonna stir some of these up to see what I have for color. Right, I think that layer is fine to dry. Okay, so I'm going to show you the artwork I did for the. I'm going to take. I decided to do these little mini. These are from like Five Below. These little canvases. They uh, they have a little easel, and so I just kind of put a little dab of glue on there to hold the easel to them, but not so much that they couldn't take them off if they didn't want to. But I did these three guys, so I'm going to put one in each art exchange box. I'll probably still have to put them in a baggie because I don't think that glue is going to hold very well if they get knocked around or anything. But I thought they came out really cute, and I will have a video on these. But they were so fun. I did these with with acrylic markers, and I've really been having a fun time exploring with other mediums lately. So these were a lot of fun to paint. I did put a little matte varnish on top of them so they would be protected. But I just love how these came out, and I kind of don't want to give them away, but I'm going to give them away because that's what I made them for. And then I want to show you a couple other things that I have tutorials for coming up. This right here, this little sushi, I did this with the jelly cup acrylics, and those worked so well. They were very matte, so I did put a varnish on top of them, but they're very matte, and I thought they were just so fun to use. And I loved having all the colors out and ready to go at one point. So there's that, and then there was this which is just like an art journal grid layout, and I collaged in some like sewing pattern instructions here and there. But since they were so matte, I was able to stamp over with archival, and the archival dried. It's really just they're kind of neat. They don't reactivate if you add water on them or anything, so it's not like a regular gouache. They're just called acrylics, but they're very matte. Um, so anyway, they're a lot of fun. A lot of fun to play with. I'll have a review on that coming out soon. But yeah, I've really been having a good time exploring mixed media lately. Not well, I always do, but especially lately for some reason. Or maybe not mixed media, but other medias. I'm just gonna scroll back, see if anybody has any questions. If you're watching the replay, you can pop ahead a little bit. You guys have been chatty. Mm, okay, I think I'm caught up. All right, I just want to give these a real quick blast. Actually, it's not super obvious where where I splashed the blue paint, so maybe I won't even need to add spatter. I think Lightwish needs to come out with a like a holder, like a frame or something that you can pop these into. Like one of those frames like they make for kids artwork where it'll hold a bunch of like 9 by 12 paintings and it's like a frame with a hinge and it opens up and you can just put a new painting in the front, whenever your kid brings in something new for a painting. Um I think it would be cool if there was something like that in this size. What is it? It is 8 by 6 by 8, where you could just kind of like add the calendar to it every month, like just a little hinged frame. Maybe they make something like that. I'll have to look. But I think something like that would be cool because right now I just have them clipped to a board and sitting on the little easel down here in the studio. But it'd be fun to have them somewhere else. I think I'm just going to go right in with the gel pens. So these gel pens are actually these were quite a find. I mentioned the first gel pen I found of this format, and it sold out like within hours of me mentioning it because I bought them because I had $4 left on a gift card or 4.50 or something. And I loved how much ink it looked like there was in the barrel. And so I got a pack of 3 1 millimeter pens, and I put one in my travel bag, one in my art cart, and one down here. And I'm like, oh, I wish I had another pack, but they sold out. And so I've been looking for a replacement. These are the exact same pens, just from a different brand name. But the nice thing about this is you get 3 different sizes. You get 3 each of a point 0.6, point 0.8, and one. And I have a review coming out on that. I did throw let me see, I threw away my, page where I had tossed it. Okay. Digging through the trash like a hobo. So this is what these look like. That's the 1 millimeter, that's the point 0.8, and that's the point 0.6, and I was just comparing them to other pens that I had. But, if you scrub with water, you can lift them, but if you brush lightly over with water or varnish, they won't come undone. But if you're varnishing a painting and you start scrubbing, or you keep going over an area, you could lift that pen, so just keep that in mind. Um, so they are a water soluble ink, and I haven't had any issues with skipping or anything. So I'm hoping that they do well in the long term, and they're nice pure white color. All right, so I'm gonna start off. I think I'll start off with I'm gonna go smallest to largest. So I'm gonna go with the point 0.6, and I'm just gonna go through and add little bits of highlight. I don't want to outline everything. I just want to kind of think of like the ridges of things catching a lot. Sometimes I'll even use a pen way at an angle so it will skip on purpose and then I can get texture. So I'll just kind of hold it at a really shallow angle and just kind of very, very lightly, barely touch the paper just to bring in a little texture. I don't want to do too much of that. I can always bring in a colored pencil. I'm just thinking of what would catch the light, and you wouldn't have a really sharp highlight on the stems because they're not shiny, not like the body of the peppers are. You would just have maybe a little bit just to show some of the texture. All right, now I'm gonna go, I think I'll just go right to the one. I'll go to the thickest one now. And Do those really bold highlights, which are kind of scary to do at first because it's like, oh my gosh, that is so bright. Think of where like you've got bumps where the pepper like pushes out against the light source, or where um part of something changes, like the like where the pepper kind of curves in under the stem, there's a rounded area that will catch highlight often. Your highlights will often be right next to your shadows. We have reflective when you have something that's reflective like a shiny pepper. I'm looking more at my individual pepper here than my reference. So I'm thinking, where is the light going to hit on that? Maybe I'll even go to the smaller one and do a secondary highlight on the edge. Or even you can even have a little bounced reflection next to the shadow if you feel like you don't have enough definition. And again, this is a lot of personal preference, because that can help pull it off of the background a bit. Ooh, that's looking almost plastic. But I think once you've done that lighting treatment to one, you've got to kind of do it to all of them. So you've got to kind of commit. I'm going a really light touch on this with this number point 0.8. All right. I like that, but it's a little bit harsh, so I think I will maybe take a little bit of colored pencil. Um, let's see. I could get fun with it and go with some colors, actually. Well, you know what? Let's set this right here. I'm gonna bring both of them down for you to see, and I'm gonna see if there's any questions real quick. Probably aren't because I just checked, but oops, I hit a button. I don't want to hit the. There we go. Whoops. Angela says they don't know it, but they'll need to visit all the boxes to collect all the paint. Yeah, all the paintings. Yeah, one of the boxes is in a casino. And I was like, oh, why would they put these in a casino? One's in a casino, one's in the public library, and one's at the cinema. And it's like, it seems like with something like that, you would want to have it someplace where like all ages could go. And the casino, I don't think it's going to draw people into the casino. And I don't know. I wish it was in more like easily accessible public spaces. The library is very accessible. And so is a movie theater too, I guess. Okay, I think I have seen that. If you do have any questions, add them soon because we're almost done here. So what I'm going to do here is look at any of these peppers and say, okay, what do I wish this had more of? Like here, I wish I had a little bit more of that chartreuse color. So I'm just going to take a color pencil and add a little bit of that in. And maybe a little bit over here too, because I like this color. I like a nice lime green. I also wished I had a little bit more turquoise. And I like to push color a bit. And you can also outline with a colored pencil if you want a little bit more of an edge and you're not happy with how it was going. Maybe a little bit of a yellowy, actually. I think some of this would be nice on that too, in the highlight area. Oh, I like that. I think that makes it feel a little bit rounder, a little bit warmer yellow over here on these guys. I don't know if it's even necessary, but I just kind of, it's kind of fun to do that. Um, Red highlights can be really tricky because it's not quite pink, it's not quite red. So I've got this kind of corally color. It's called pale vermilion, but it's essentially like a coral color. I'm just going to go around my highlights a little bit. Just to give it a little bit of depth and interest, because I was thinking it was a little bit bland, a little bit boring. I didn't like it as much as my sketchbook piece. But I will always say I paint better when I'm not talking at the same time. Repeating the colors so that I don't end up with anything discordant. So I think this is great for a fall calendar page. September, that cross between summer and fall. You're starting to get all the things out of your garden. I just posted a pastel painting tutorial of peppers from my garden. I mean, not peppers, I'm sorry. All my peppers got eaten by I don't know what of tomatoes. And it was just a real time 25 minutes again. It's what I was talking about, just having fun playing with other mediums. It was so fun. I'll show you that in a second. The video's up on my channel now. I'm just gonna highlight this one in front. Maybe a little bit on that, not a lot. The stems always get a little dried out, so I like having that a lighter color there. All right. Yeah, I think I'm gonna call that done. I like that. I like the way it is. I might tone down some of those highlights actually though. Strike that, reverse it. I'm gonna tone down some of these. Not the main highlight in the center, but the edge highlights because I feel like I got them a little. I feel like they're a little much there. That's a little bit more natural looking, I think. But I'll show you that tomato picture. I have it on magnetic board here. But that was a lot of fun. Just very easy on velour paper, just let the paper show. And tomatoes from the garden. It was a lot of fun to do. I highly recommend that you sketch stuff that you see in your real life because you can actually pick it up and examine it and look at it and um, see how it looks from all angles. And I think that's really helpful. So one last look for questions, and then I will let you get back to your day. I know probably some of you guys are taking an extended lunch break here. Oh, so many friends. Oh my gosh. So good to see everyone. Oh, I think everybody is all right. No questions. I don't think I answered maybe one or two questions this entire stream. I want to thank everyone for checking it out. And if you have any questions after the stream, if you're watching the replay or you just didn't think of it at the time, you can add it in the comments below. Oh, we do have a question for Melissa Eldessari. How do you like this particular set of Paul Rubens, Pretty Tin? Honestly, I this is the first painting I've done with it. This is a swatch of them. I think the tin is beautiful. The quality of the paints is more like the Miliang or the Chom. They actually feel a lot like the Chaumet set, which was the set in the plastic case. Um, I think the 24 set is a better value because the colors in the 24 set I think are a lot more useful. I think you have a lot of excess colors here um that you could easily mix and will probably never be used up. There are some interesting well, like this light red has a beautiful granulation to it. There's a lot of granulating PR101 shades in here, and you got some PBK11 shades in here. But overall, there's a lot of mixed pigments, and for the price being like $69, 68 or $69, their original professional range of 48 is $72. So for like four, I don't know, 2 to 4 more dollars, you get a much higher grade of paint. But you don't get the pretty tin. The tin is gorgeous. I will give them that. The 36 set comes in the big tin too, so you can get the tin a little bit cheaper that way. I need to do a little bit more playing with them to be definitive, but for right now, I would say if you love the tin, I'd go for the 24 set. I think there's just much more all the colors are useful in the 24 set where I don't feel that's the case with this. Um, that's my first impression so far. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm picky, but I don't know, I gotta use them a little bit more, but right now I'm kind of feeling that a lot of mixed pigments, a lot of colors that aren't really necessary, and just the painting of them, painting with them. It's okay. It's okay. I don't think I like painting with this set as much as the 24 set, but then again, I didn't use all the colors in this painting, so, I gotta use them a little bit more. This tin is beautiful, though. Tin is a beautiful rainbow design, and I know some people will wanna buy it just for the tin, that's fine, but I gotta spend a little more time with them before I really give my answer. I think it's gonna be kind of like if you like, I'm gonna link. I have a review of the 24 set. You can go check that out, and I would check out the Show May set as well. I have a review on that because that's the quality of the paints. Um, they added more colors, but I think it actually made the set less useful, and those added colors diluted the quality of the set because there's a lot of not very strong colors that they added that I don't or mixed colors that you can usually make from the colors in the original set. But anyway, I'll get into that when I have the review. Probably will be a couple weeks anyway, because I do have a lot of reviews scheduled out already. But bad. They're not bad. I think the price is a little high for them. I don't think it should cost nearly $70 when their professional range costs 72 to 90. You're better off saving up and buying the professional set in my opinion, but it doesn't come in the cube tin. The tin is a thing. The tin is a thing, I think. And just seeing if there's any other questions. No, I guess we're good. So anyway, please give me a thumbs up before you go. That really helps my channel, helps people find these videos. And thank you for spending some of your day with me today. Until next time, as always, happy crafting. Bye.